Now, in his first visit overseas after taking charge, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is in Vietnam, and amid concerns about China's regional assertiveness, the two countries have reached an agreement on transfer of defense gear. The two nations have signed agreements to strengthen security and economic ties. The agreement for Japan to export military gear and technology to the Southeast Asian nation has also been signed. The Japanese Prime Minister has called this a big step in the field of security for the two countries, adding that Vietnam, which is serving as ASEAN chair this year, is key to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific. The leaders also agreed on the importance of maintaining peace, security and freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea to settle disputes in a peaceful manner.
It's a big step in the field of security and defense cooperation between the two countries. We reached an agreement in principle on the transfers of defense equipment and technology, and I believe that it will advance further.
Hai bên tái khẳng định tầm quan trọng bảo đảm hòa bình, an ninh, an toàn, tự do hàng hải và hàng không tại Biển Đông, thúc đẩy giải quyết tranh chấp bằng biện pháp hòa bình, không sử dụng vũ lực hoặc đe dọa sử dụng vũ lực, nghiêm túc tuân thủ luật pháp quốc tế, nhất là Công ước của Liên Hiệp Quốc về luật biển 1982 trong các hoạt động trên biển.
The visit to the Southeast Asian countries comes amid growing concerns over Chinese aggression. After Quad, which comprises Japan, the US, India and Australia, Tokyo is clearly seeking to open another front against China. This as several ASEAN members, including the Philippines, have ongoing territorial disputes with China, while Vietnam is the co-chair of the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Indonesia is the group's biggest economy. Yoshihide Suga is following the footsteps of his predecessor, Shinzo Abe, who also made a trip to two Southeast Asian nations after taking office. The Japanese Prime Minister is under pressure by the ruling lawmakers to take a tougher stance against China. And our correspondent Grace Lee spoke to us earlier about these developments. Take a listen in.
Prime Minister Suga will likely be looking to diversify Japan's supply chains. As we saw during the pandemic, China, when it first went under lockdown, Japan was hit pretty hard, as was many other nations around the world. So there is this rush from countries like India, Australia, the Quad nations that we saw. They are trying to quickly diversify their supply chains as quickly as possible to try and become a little bit more immune to any kind of further impact if China should go under another lockdown like this in the future. Now, we are hearing that the Prime Minister will likely strike a deal with Vietnam to import and export medical goods to each other, diversify the supply chain in that sense. But they're also looking to strike a military agreement in which Japan would be able to send some defense goods over to Vietnam as well. So there will be a lot of eyes on that to see what that'll mean for the two countries and their stance against China. Yeah, well, obviously, Suga wants to engage in more trade with Vietnam. It's a very attractive place, cheap labor, a lot of young labor, something that Japan obviously does not have as one of the fastest growing older nations in the world. So he is likely looking to try and make that happen as soon as possible. One of the holdbacks at the moment, though, is the travel ban that Japan has. Japan has one of the strictest travel bans in the world at the moment. A lot of business travelers coming into Japan have to wait 2 weeks under quarantine as well, even if they're from places like Vietnam, where they essentially have much lower cases than Japan. So he's likely going to try and have a discussion there to make that a little bit more efficient, perhaps have business travelers from Vietnam not go through that 2-week quarantine and try and speed up business that way.